Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our April online lecture event. We are the Center for Climate Science and Engineering at University of Toronto. We host monthly guest lectures. My name is Mohamed Jolair. I am the CSE manager. Today, we are pleased to feature Dr. Camille Pierre from the European Institute for Energy Research. First of all, I'd like to go through the land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many indigenous people from across the Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. For those who haven't attended or guest lectures events before, we are the Center for Climate Science and Engineering, which is a research and education center within the Civil and Mineral Engineering Department at the University of Toronto, and it was established in 2019. The CSE is made up of a multidisciplinary team of faculty members participating together in interdisciplinary research at the intersection of climate science and engineering. Our center's director is Oyamar Jan, and she focuses on structural analysis. Marianne Estepol focuses on transportation. Paul Kirshner looks at climate dynamics. Graham Norrell, Professor Emeritus, focuses on health and process safety. Daniel Paulson looks at life cycle assessment. Karen Smith works on atmospheric science. Marianne Tucci focuses on building science. Sam Markov from the University of California, Merced, focuses on sustainability and resilience. And then me, the CSE manager. So one of the key activities that CSE doing is education around climate science and engineering. There are two graduate courses that have been developed and run at the University of Toronto. 8 online learning modules were developed and are available for use in Ontario higher education environments. Secondly, our faculty members are carrying out research projects in collaboration at the intersection of climate science and engineering. Also, our team is arranging outreach activities just like this one, where we invite the public or university people to give a presentation about topics that align with the mandate and vision we have at the center. Now, I'd like to introduce today's guest lecture speaker. Dr. Camille Pierre is currently working as a researcher at the European Institute for Energy Research. She holds a master's degree in chemistry and process engineering with a major in environment, as well as a master's degree in public health. She obtained her PhD in economics as an environmental economist. Her primary research interests include assessing the environmental and health-related impacts and dependencies of RISE projects using both physical and economic methodologies. Dr. Payer advocates for the integration of these approaches into a broader context of corporate or publicly funded projects to ensure their consistency with climate and environmental goals. She will be presenting the role of environmental economics in energy project development. Dr. Payer, welcome. I want to extend a special thank you for accepting our invitation to give a presentation today. Despite the big time difference between our regions, we are very excited to learn more about your research. Now, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much for having me. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I'm Camille Pierre. As said, I work at the European Institute for Energy Research as an environmental economist. And today we will talk about how environmental economy can support project development. But first of all, thank you to Professor Merkin for inviting me and to Mohamed Kharir for his efficient and smooth organization of this event. For info, if you want the slide, you can just email me. I will send them to you. So, what do all these projects have in common? The factory, which employs the people from the neighborhood, the small farm with organic vegetable, or the new urban forest around the corner. Well, all these projects have impact on environment, positive impact or negative impact. Even when a company follows all regulation and sector best practices and its own internal guideline, their project will have impact. Impact on environment and health on actors which are concerned by the project, or on actors who are not concerned by the project, like inhabitants around. That's called externalities. It's similar to the theory of donut at planet level, which states there is a safe and just operating space for humanity impact on environment. If we don't, humanity have an impact on environment. Otherwise, we cannot have what we call a decent life. But if the impact is too important, it damages the environment and decreases the chance of sustainable development. And that can be assessed qualitatively, it exists. Quantitatively, for example, a power plant emits such a much quantity of particles, or in monetary terms. That's what we will talk about today. Contribution to environmental economic to project development aim at two aspects: limiting detrimental impact on the project and environment and increasing the positive one, while keeping financial consideration in mind. The goal is to reach some kind of social optimum. Indeed, we could imagine limiting to the maximum detrimental impact on environment, which can sound good like that, but we can imagine that it could put some companies into bankruptcy or make some commodities like electricity super expensive, to mean people will not be able to access these basic commodities. So the goal is to find an optimum. So today we will talk about these three aspects: how to choose which environmental protection measure to implement, taking into account this economic consideration, how to finance this environmental protection measure, and how to monitor and valorize the effort done and the money spent. And I will finish with a focus on how to assess the monetary value of non-market goods like environment and health. Please note that this will not give an overview of all these aspects, not present an exhaustive review of all the possibilities. Otherwise, we will be there all the night. So, first point, how to choose which environmental protection measure to implement. The golden standard for that is cost-benefit analysis. It's aimed at supporting, not replacing, decision process by assessing the social efficiency of an investment, taking into account the impact from the project on actors not directly concerned by the project, such as inhabitants around the project, and at easing the communication between the different actors by expressing all the elements in the same unit, the monetary unit. It's a tool of decision support because we compare the cost of implementing the project with its benefits from its implementation, economic benefit, for example, more employment in the region, and non-economic ones, such as impact on health, environment, cultural impact, aesthetic impact, and so on, which are expressed in a monetary unit. In regulation, there are some requirements for this cost-benefit analysis. In Europe, in the Water Directive, which is a regulation to ensure a good state of water body, and in the Cleaner for Europe Directive, which limits the emission of air pollutants. In Canada, it's mandatory for new regulation, a cost-benefit analysis to assess economic, social, and environmental aspects. So how to do this cost-benefit analysis? So the world-recognized method is the one from the OECD. Please note that each country have published guidelines with slight twists of this method to adapt it to its local condition. Cost-benefit analysis has to choose different measures and take decisions. So it's an ex-ante assessment before the project has begun. The first aspect is framing the project, meaning asking the question, is this project justified to begin with? What are the options? So here you settle what you will be assessing. The second step is context, and especially who is concerned by the measure. the people, geographical perimeter, time perimeter, how long will it be over 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, and so on. Next step is the cost-benefit assessment itself, where you assess all costs, including installation, maintenance, impact of the system. If you are talking about a power plant, for example, if you put a new filter on a power plant, you might have a decrease of the efficiency. So you really try to take account all the costs and all the benefits, commercial one, such as on fishing activity, for example, or non-commercial one, non-marketing one. On environment, do you have to take measures to protect biodiversity or inhabitants' well-being, for example? And taking into account the time frame. That will be a recurring aspect. Cost occur when you do the project, most of the time, most of the cost. Benefits occur over the duration of the project, which can be 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, even longer. Next step is assessing risk and uncertainties. Risk is defined here, specific definition, as uncertainties when you have a probability distribution. So not so uncertain as uncertainties, if I can say that like. Uncertainty here are really, you know something is happening, don't know what, don't have a lot of number. It's the right place to state the benefits that you couldn't quantify and monetize. And the last step is the decision. Do you implement the program and which option is taken? So as I say, cost-benefit analyses are useful to support decision-making, but also have some limits. The key one is the identification of cost and benefits. It can be difficult to identify all costs for each option. For example, cost of maintenance of cutting-edge technology on the long run can be unknown or with a lot of uncertainties. And all benefits for all the different actors. Do you know all the population will be affected on the long run? People coming from holidays, for example. That can be managed to some extent by in-depth knowledge of the option and especially on the local context. And I insist on that. For this type of analysis, you really need contacts with people living there, people knowing the context. It cannot be done off-site in a consulting office. The second limit can be the perimeter of the analysis. Geographic area, temporal area, as I say, the extent of the project, but also the perimeter of the system you study. To go back to the power plant example, do you speak about the cooling system only or the entire power plant? Or do you restore part of a small ecosystem or the entire region? So you have to define all this perimeter and you have to make choices. You cannot assess everything. And again, the choices are made by understanding the option and the context. Next step are the uncertainties related to quantification of non-market benefits. For example, if I ask you like that, the monetary value of an ecosystem services or just of your well-being, it might be difficult to assess like that. In cost-benefit analysis, it's managed by using recognized value in scientific literature or governmental recommended value. We'll come back to this step in the focus in the last part of this talk. And the last limit can be communication. It can be difficult to communicate the uncertainties and the limit of the study without undermining its credibility, especially to general population. So it's really important to state all the hypotheses and take the time to explain all the choice made. An example, there was a cost benefits conducted in the Great Lakes, Ontario, to assess the economic value of protecting this ecosystem and to examine which protection measure would be the most efficient. The population considered was the population of the area Canadian side. And the time frame was over 30 years, 5 years for putting this the measure into action, and 25 years to observe the impact of the measure. So here is the area that you know better than me, probably. The measure considered were two options, the option which I talked about before. Land securement, meaning buying land to protect the ecosystem and turn the land into a reserve or a park, or restoration, meaning really having action to improve the condition of the ecosystem. The assessment was based on the total economic value. I will detail that also in the last part. The total economic value consider at the same time economic value, like residential water, or having a clean water body, decrease cost for drinking water, up to benefit of knowing that the area exists and is in a good condition. So the total economic value try to assess all the aspects of the value. The results have shown that wetland protection and restoration has very high benefit, up to 25 ratio benefit over cost. However, stream system restoration is not so beneficial. So that means it's a high interest in protecting and restoring wetland. However, the author of the study clearly states they couldn't assess all benefit of restoring streams, so it could worth to go a bit deeper in that side. So now you have designed your sustainable project or your nature preservation project. Comes a hard time how to finance it. You have to find money now. Well, how to finance a project with the same financing instrument as for any other project, meaning debt, like loan, leasing, and equity, venture capital, and stocks. However, in the case of sustainable project, you have different risk and opportunity. Some of these instruments have been adapted to climate risk, especially, like microloan. For example, in developing country, you might have heard that this microloan allows people to develop sustainable agriculture, or green bond. We will see the example later of that. One limit to this type of financing is information asymmetry. Traditional institutions, like traditional banks, for example, may not know all the risks and opportunities of sustainable projects, climate adaptation projects, and so on. And so may have a bit difficulties of lending money or financing this type of project. To mitigate this risk, there are some specific instruments. Grants, I guess we all know, all have asked grants for our research project or for proof of concept early stage. Guarantees, like guarantees when you buy a house, for example, a third party, often a public authority, agree to pay the debt if the borrower, project, the people developing the project cannot reimburse the debt. Or public-private partnership, which is a collaboration between a public agency and a private company to develop a sustainable project in the broad sense of the term, like public transportation, parks, or convention centers, so public project. A focus on bonds, because it's really used in practice currently. There are three types of bonds, three main types of bonds, with all the same principles. They contribute to finance projects with a clear scope. Green bonds are for projects with environmental benefits, social bonds for projects with social benefits, and sustainability bonds for projects with both types of benefits. Oops. The bond principles have been developed by the International Capital Market Association. You can see them on the right-hand side. There are some principles like how the money you have raised through bond has to be used, or for example, reporting. You have to, for bonds, you have to report clearly how the money have been used and the results of the project. Sectors which can benefit from green bonds are, for example, renewable energy sector, biodiversity conservation, or climate change and mitigation and adaptation projects. One example of green bonds are the one emitted by the Washington DC Sewer Authority. They issued environmental bond in 2016. The goal was to finance the improvement of the stormwater management system. Indeed, when you have runoff, when you have a storm, it costs a lot to the city because it goes into the general system and the water has to be purified and treated before being put back into nature. So they wanted to decrease this runoff by developing green infrastructure. That was part of a bigger project. So investors were Goldman Sachs and the Calvert Foundation, and it's a pay for success type of principle. The bond are reimbursed, and then you have a prime, a bonus, depending on the success of the operation. So if the project is successful, meaning if the stormwater runoff reduction is bigger, so reduction is bigger than 41%, the project is successful and the investor gets an additional payment. If the project failed, meaning there is still a lot of stormwater runoff, the reduction is lower than 18%, the investor make a one-time payment to the sewer authority. And if the reduction is in between, nobody make any additional payment to anyone. So the objective is to isolate the project performance risk, the environmental risk, from the investment risk. And the bonus is based on the success of the adaptation project. Another example are green bonds emitted by the province of Ontario. 12 issues financed 28 projects since 2014, such projects such as clean transportation, energy efficiency and conservation, or clean energy and technology. And this type of bond contribute to finance Ontario line somewhere in Toronto. You can see here. So you can see that this bond are really used in practice in daily life. Another example for developing country is dedicated insurance. The African Trade Insurance Agency is an organism which insures risk specific to projects in Africa. It's focused on sustainable projects validated by some criteria from the United Nations and the European Investment Bank. The projects have mandatory environmental and social criteria, and the insurance agency also provide additional support with, for example, a network and of stakeholders, for example. And it can insure projects, for example, terrorism, political instability, or sabotage, which are a current problem in Africa and for companies to invest there. So that's an insurance which targets specifically sustainable development and climate adaptation projects in Africa. So now you have designed your project, you have financed it, and you are proud of it, you should be. And you want to monitor your results and valorize the efforts done and the money spent on it. How you do that? Well, the first question is, why the financial institution cares about this type of sustainable investment? The answer is very basic, because it costs them money. If for Canada, it has been estimating that the lack of action about climate adaptation has cost about $25 billion between 2015 and 2025, and that every dollar spent on adaptation measure saves between $13 and $15 in both direct and indirect economical benefits. So the financial system have an interest in following and encouraging sustainable projects because it benefits the economy. there is a need, for example, in the case of climate adaptation project, to assess the investment to monitor the transition to low carbon economy and to track the non-market impact of investment to assess the social efficiency, to which this efficiency and this benefit we talked about just before. The key challenge again there is a time frame. Action is taken now, so the costs occur now, but the benefits occur later and may be difficult to quantify for two reasons, because it's long term and it's ex ante, so it hasn't happened yet, and because circumstances can change. So you have to make some assumption, to make some simulation to know what will be the benefits or the losses if you don't act later. So that's the key challenge is this assessment. Some framework have been developed to ensure the disclosure and the communication about the sustainable investment. A very well-known one is the one developed by the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, as the name said, for climate project. It has been set up in 2015, and the first recommendation has been given in 2017. The objective is to support climate-related finance disclosure to help companies to report that their climate adaptation and mitigation project and investment in a comprehensive and consistent way. It tackles the 4 thematic areas that represent core elements of how organizations operate, so governance, strategy, risk management, and metrics. You can see on the right-hand side that it's considered both risk of climate adaptation, transition risk, and physical risk, but also the opportunities like market opportunities, new products and services, or increase in efficiency. And it goes down to how to express the cost and the benefit in all the usual financial reporting system. So we provide a consistent framework for that. For Canada, some assessment in 2021 has shown that the company begin to comply to this financial reporting standard, but there are still margin of progress. And this reporting should be mandatory from next year on for all federally regulated financial institutions. So it's something which really is put into action now. One other option is the triple bottom line. Triple bottom line stands for profit, people, and planet. Profit as a traditional corporate reporting, profit and loss account. People are to measure how socially responsible is the company, and planet is how to measure how environmentally responsible is the company over time, like usual profit and loss account. It has big benefit, like it ensures that the company has a positive impact over the world, which is always good. But it may also, on a more pragmatic level, ensure a greater external funding from investors seeking this type of sustainable and responsible investment, or getting also more customers seeking the same stuff. Let's be honest, it has also some cons, such as it will increase the cost of operation, at least in the transition phase, and it may make the decision taking more difficult because you have more parameters to take into account, which may go one against the other. Indeed, measuring profit include usual accounting, but also some responsibility about financial systems, such as does the company pay the taxes at reasonable level in the country she actually operates in? There are big discussions about that, at least in Europe, for example. People and measuring people include wage and other benefits, either at a decent level for the area, but also employment demographic. Planet include mitigation, reduction of greenhouse gases, but also is the raw material ethically sources, waste management, and preventing environmental degradation. There is a link with the environmental, social, and governance (ESG) program and the Sustainable Development Goals, which states 3 key pillars for sustainable development: biosphere, here called environment, planet, society, and economy. So this triple bottom line reporting really reflects this structure. So now we have our project, we have it financed, and we know how some option to valorize the effort done. I have talked a lot about monetary value, expressing everything in the same unit, non-market good in the same unit. It's really nice, but how you put a monetary value on environment? Well, you can use the total economic value that we have seen used in the cost-benefit analysis about Ontario. This economic value includes use value, actual direct and indirect use, like if you have a clean lake, you can fish there, eat the fish, you spare money, you can have a professional fisherman that earn money like that. You can swim in the lake in the summer, it's great. Option value. For self, you might want to swim in the lake later. Not now, but later, it's an option. You might want that your family being able to swim in the lake, or that your great-grandchildren are able to swim in the lake. And that's all the option value. The other aspect is the non-use value, meaning you value the sheer fact that this ecosystem, environmental nature feature exists and is in a good state. A good example for that is panda. We are all happy that panda exists. It makes cute video, but it's totally useless in our daily life. So we are just happy they exist. It's non-use value, except if you have a panda in your backyard. In that case, it's use value, and I really need a photo of your panda. You can see here the total value of ecosystem services in Ontario. They have been estimated, so for all they have identified 10 different types of ecosystem services in the region and assess their value according to this principle. For health impact, it's the same principle, but the distinction is a bit different. You have the cost when you are sick, cost of illness. Some are paid by the individual, treatment cost. Some are paid by the society of treatment costs, national healthcare. So I have developed this example for France. I guess it's similar for Canada, but not completely sure. In France, the national healthcare system pay a big chunk of the treatment cost, and you have to pay a supplementary health insurance. There is a loss of production when you are sick. The society has to pay substitute someone to do the work, or to bear a little decrease of productivity. And in France, if you are called sick most of the time, you have 3 days during which you are not paid. And after that, the specific insurance kick in. So that's a cost for you. Then there is a case when you try not to be sick. So the case of vaccines, the society bears the cost of paying vaccine for everyone, again in France and in Germany. And individuals also have some cost for that. Respiratory mask, everyone, I guess we all know all too well about that right now. All these aspects are market costs. They have a price, they are sold and bought on the market. The last part is a little bit more trickier, intangible cost. Most of the people don't like being sick. You give a value to the fact of being healthy. And that's the cost. It's not born into the market. You cannot buy it in the market, but it has an actual value. And not assessing this value kind of decrease the overall value of your health. A concrete example. The ecosystem services of the City of Toronto ravine system has been assessed for the year 2017. So what does this natural system bring to people, inhabitants of Toronto? You have very clear value because people can have a physical activity here, which spare a lot of illness, morbidity, mortality, and avoid direct healthcare costs, which has been assessed. 217 million euros in dollar, obviously, in 2017. That's very concrete cost for the healthcare system. But they also have assessed the value of people liking that the place exists without using it, $2.5 million in 2017. Overall, this natural environment bring us value of $822 million in 2017. So that has been assessed, and that is the overall value of the ecosystem, including the existence value. How you assess the value of a non-market goods with a non-market valuation method? No need to thank me for that. There are two types, rival preference method and stated preference method. Rival preference method are based on the principle of observing an existing market and to extract from that the trading of a non-market goods. Example, hedonic prices, you look at the price of houses, and for example, the situation as a close to nature or not, and see how the proximity of this environmental feature affects the prices. Travel cost, how much people are ready to pay to reach, for example, again, a lake in very good condition. That's how much they are ready to pay to go to this specific lake is the value they give to this specific good feature. The last one, averting behavior. The key example is car seats for kids. The price you are ready to pay for a car seat for your kids and the time you are ready to spend to buckle your kid, a crying kid, in this stuff are a proxy on how much you value the safety of your kid. And the company selling this stuff really knows that, and that's why it's super expensive. One of the reasons. An example of hedonic prices has been conducted in the region, I will not say this word, around close to where you are. By the way, this Canadian database gathers tons of environmental evaluation study and is really the reference worldwide to get for all this study if you want to find monetary value. And they estimate the value attributed to natural proximity by inhabitants by observing the value of properties, three types of nature, deep and large connected ravine, small isolated ravine, and something in between. And you can see on the right-hand side that the property close to the big ravine can cost up to 5%, can be up to 5% more expensive than the other one. This increase of value property is especially big for the one close to nature, 5 to 10 meters, with a strong decrease with the distance and no impact over 100 meters. So it's really a proxy for the value by inhabitant to see in these natural spaces. The second type of method, a stated preference method, where you create an hypothetical situation and administrated a survey to a sample of the target population for them to value their preferences. Contagion valuation, directly asking to people how much they would pay in an hypothetical scenario for the health or environmental improvement. It's like choosing in real life how much you are ready to spend on clothes or whatever. Choice experiment, people are asked to choose between different options as package. Like when you choose a car, it can be blue, big with 5 doors, or small, red with 3 doors. That's the same thing. You have package and you choose between them. An example, don't try to read, that's the illness description. It was the evaluation of chronic pulmonary obstructive disease. It's an It's a disease which evolves over time. And here it's just to show you that the description of the disease given was very comprehensive and detailed. And people were directly asked, are you ready to buy a treatment which will magically cure your disease? And if yes, how much you are ready to pay for it? The blue stuff was a worse illness which really impair life and lead to premature death. And that's why the possibility of treatment were very high. And this exercise is very unusual in France and Germany because we don't pay for our treatment in contrary to the US, for example. So it was a bit tricky to design the study, but that's a contingent valuation. The limits on this study are on the principle itself. It's based on neoclassical model of preferences, which states that individuals have underlying preferences, which are clear, comprehensive, well-behaved, and reasonably stable. And their expressed choices reflect those underlying preferences. And from that, we know that we will have problem because, who doesn't want to be fit and healthy and take the second or fifth piece of chocolate and skip gym? That's really something which go against this principle. And we have the same problem in monetary valuation. In practice, there are some other limits. For rival preferences, you have to find a market which matches the good you want to value. For stated preferences, it's very unusual to value, for example, health or nature in monetary terms. So that can link some bias, and it's a theoretical exercise. Some people try to cheat the system by giving lower or higher value to get the program implemented and pay less. And then some effects that have to be taken into account. So monetary valuation can be a useful tool to support decision-making, but it has limits, and especially if two situations, two options are really close monetary value, you might want to ask to think a bit longer to be sure there are differences. To conclude, environmental economics is using economics to tackle environmental challenges to support the decision process by summarizing multiple environmental dimensions into one synthetic indicator for any stakeholder from the project development phase to monitoring the project. And it's done by assessing impact qualitatively, quantitatively, and in monetary terms. In the context of climate change, it should help to understand the stake and the different options and their articulation. It's helped to highlight the cost of inaction and to compare it with the cost of possible action. And it also supports communication, internal and external, by expressing the various dimensions of a project into a known matrix. Thank you for your attention. And if you have questions, I will gladly answer them.